Welcome to my channel. Improve your English skills through stories. Listen.
Crazy Mother, Part 2.
My grandmother was so angry that in front of people used a stick to hit her daughter-in-law's waist, cursing. "Beat this crazy girl to death, go away now." Although Mother was crazy, she still felt pain. She jumped up and ran away from the stick, her mouth emitting stuttering sounds of fear. Don't. After that, people also felt uncomfortable and proactively said,
"Well, we won't pay anymore." Then hold her a little tighter.
After the storm passed, my mother lay on the ground sobbing and crying. I said contemptuously, "You can't tell the difference between vegetables and rice, you're a pig." As soon as the words ended, the back of my neck was slapped. It was her. She glared and told me,
"You idiot, what are you talking about? Are you still like this? That's your mother."
I struggled and pouted. "I don't have this kind of crazy mother."
"Ah, you're getting more and more deceitful. See if I hits you."
Grandma raised her hand again, only to see her mother spring up from the ground like a spring, covering Grandma and me. Mom pointed at her head, screaming,
"Hit me, hit me."
I understand, Mom told Grandma to hit her, "Don't hit me." Her arms hung down in the air, muttering,
"This crazy mother, in her heart she also knows how to love you."
When I was in first grade, my father was invited by a fish-raising household in a neighboring village to work at the fish pond, earning 50 yuan a month. Mom still goes to work in the fields under her guidance, mainly cutting vegetables for pigs, and she no longer causes any big trouble. I remember one cold winter day when I was in third grade, it suddenly started to rain, and my grandmother asked my mother to bring me an umbrella. Perhaps on the way to school, my mother fell down a few times, her whole body looking like a monkey covered in mud. She stood outside the classroom window looking at me, smiling foolishly, calling me, "Thursday, umbrella." A few of my friends giggled. I felt like I was sitting on a spike, hating my mother terribly, hating my mother for not being reasonable, hating my mother for embarrassing me, and hating even more Hui, who was the leader of the teasing. While he was still flamboyantly imitating his mother, I grabbed the pencil case in front of him and hit him hard, but Hui avoided it. He rushed to strangle me, we struggled and fought. I'm small, I'm not his opponent, easily defeated by him pressed down on the ground. At this time, I only heard a long whoosh sound from outside the classroom. My mother rushed in like a knight, grabbed Hui's neck with one hand, and pushed him outside the classroom door. Everyone says crazy people are strong, it's true. Mom used both hands to lift the bully into the air. He was scared and cried for his parents, one fat leg kicking wildly in the air. Mom didn't pay attention, threw it in the pond next to the school gate, then with a blank face, she went out. Mom caused a big disaster because of me, but she acted like nothing happened. In front of me, my mother looked terrified, looking at me as if she wanted to please me. I understood that this is my mother's love. Although her mind is not clear, her love is still awake, because her son is being bullied. At that moment I couldn't help but cry out, "Mom!" This is the first call since I learned to speak. Mom was completely stunned, looked at me for a long time, and then like a child, her face turned red, and she smiled silly. That day, for the first time, my mother and I went home under the same umbrella. I told my grandmother the story. She was so scared that she fell down on a chair and quickly asked someone to call my father home. As soon as my father entered the house, a group of burly men with knives and rulers rushed into my house. Without asking any questions, they first smashed all the bowls, chopsticks, and jars in the house until they were crushed like soy sauce. The house looked like there had just been an earthquake level 9. These are the people asked by Hui's family. Hui's father fiercely pointed at my father and said,
My son was so scared that he went crazy and is currently in the hospital. If you don't bring 1,000 yuan to pay for medicine, your mother will set your house on fire.
1,000 yuan. Dad works only 50 yuan a month. Looking at the murderous people behind the Hui family, my father's eyes gradually turned red. He looked at my mother with extremely terrible eyes. With one hand he quickly cut off a leather belt and beat her all over her head and face. One fight after another, my mother was just like a frightened mouse trembling, like a hunted animal that had been cornered to death. Jumping in fear, running away, the chirp sound she made that I have never heard in my entire life. I can't forget it now. Then the chief of the police station came to stop the violent hand of his father. The conciliation result of the police station is, both sides have losses, both do not owe each other anything. Whoever still causes trouble will arrest that person. After the group left, my father looked around the house at broken pieces of pots, pans, bowls and chopsticks. He looked at my mother with whip marks all over her body. My father suddenly hugged my mother and cried bitterly.
Crazy mother, it's not that I want to hit you, but if I don't hit you, this matter cannot be resolved, our family won't have the money to pay you back. Because it's so poor that it becomes a disaster.
Father looked at me again and said,
Thursday, you have to try to go to university. Otherwise, our family will be bullied for life by other people, okay?
I nodded, I understand. In the summer of 2000, I passed the high school entrance exam with excellent results. My grandmother passed away because of hard work all her life. The family situation became more and more difficult. The locality classifies my family as extremely poor, with a monthly allowance of 40 yuan. My school also reduced my tuition, so I could continue my studies. Because of boarding school, a lot of homework, I rarely go home. My father still works for 50 yuan a month. The burden of supplies for me rests on my mother's shoulders. No one can replace me. Every time the aunt next door helps to cook the food, she gives it to my mother to take it away. 20 kilometers of mountain road zigzags with goat intestines, making it hard for Mom to remember the way. Even the wind and snow still go. And what a miracle! Whatever she does for her son, the mother is not crazy at all. Apart from maternal love, I have no other explanation. Medicine should also explain the discovery of this phenomenon. Another Sunday, my mother came again. Not only did she bring me food, she also brought more than a dozen wild peaches. I took one, took a bite, smiled and asked my mother. So sweet, where did it come from? Mom said.
I picked.
Unexpectedly, my mother also knew how to pick wild peaches. I sincerely praised her. Mom, you are getting more and more talented. Mom laughed. Before my mother came home, I made a habit of telling her to be careful and safe, and she replied. After saying goodbye to my mother, I was busy studying before the final exam of high school. The next day, while in class, my aunt rushed to the school and asked the teacher to call me out the door. Aunt asked me, "Did your mother come to deliver food?" I said she gave it to me. My mom came home yesterday. Aunt said,
"No, your mother hasn't come home yet."
My heart jumped. Surely my mother hadn't lost her way. She has been on this journey for 3 years, so she probably can't get lost. Aunt asked,
"Did your mother say anything?"
I said no, my mom just gave me a dozen fresh peaches. She thumbs up with 2 hands.
"It's okay, it's ruined, maybe because of those wild peaches."
My aunt asked me to take a leave of absence from school, so we went along the mountain road to find her. There are indeed some wild peach trees on the way back, only a few piles on the tree, because if they grow on a cliff, they can still keep the fruit. At the same time, we saw a broken branch on the peach tree trunk, and under the tree was a 100-meter deep abyss. Aunt looked at me and said,
"Let's go down to the cliff to find."
I say, "Aunt, don't threaten me." She wordlessly dragged me down the cliff. Mother lay quietly in the ravine, wild peaches scattered around. In her hand she still clutched one. The blood on her body had hardened into a heavy black mass. I was in so much pain that my internal organs felt like they were bursting. I hugged my mother tightly and called out, "Mother, my suffering mother." Son said, regretting this sweet peach, "It was me who took your life. Mom, you haven't lived a happy day." I put my head close to my mother's cold face, crying so much that even the wild rocks on the mountain top shed their tears with me. 100 days after my mother was buried, the university admission letter passed through the paths my mother had taken, past the wild peach trees, through the rice fields at the beginning of the village, flying straight into my door. I pinned that late letter to the top of my mother's grave. Mom, I've had the day to open my eyes and open my eyes. Do you hear me? Mom can smile all over the place now.
Thank you for watching my video. Subscribe to the channel to learn more useful knowledge.